This is TWiT.
The Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers will, and this is why we have a Frenchman with us, will no longer be under the aegis of the United States of America. And I think you have to blame this a little bit on the Snowden revelations and the fear around the world that the U.S. is perhaps not a benign government. On the other hand, this has been going on for a couple of years with Russia and other countries kind of trying to say, no, we should run. Yeah, that's what you want.
We want to run it. You guys
want
stink.
Vladimir Putin running the Internet.
Yeah.
What is give us the Parisian point of view.
Well, I don't know that it's the Parisian point of view, but my point of view is definitely in line with, I think we've talked about this on the show before, but in line with what you just said. There's definitely concerns about one country having such a prominent role in running the internet. But on the other hand, a lot of people are saying we don't want the U.S. to be doing it. Maybe partly because of the Snowden thing, but also, it had been in the minds of people before that. And the thing is, personally, I think I would rather have the U.S. running it rather than an assembly or a body, a multinational body where China and Russia and other countries that are, less reliable than the U.S. or the West in general have their say, especially in the internet and where the war about free speech and surveillance is happening now.
Let me give you the background,
with that, by the way.
a little bit of the background on this, and then I have a statement that Vince Cerf emailed Ars Technica. He's one of the fathers of the internet, and certainly somebody we respect and admire, and a former chair of ICANN through 2007.
What did he say?
So in the early days of the internet, it was invented kind of here, Bolt Beranek Newman under DARPA, SRI, Stanford. And there was a guy, John Postel, at the University of Southern California, who was a guy. It was one guy in his office, and if you wanted a domain, rather a number, or a set of numbers, if you wanted to,
some IPs,
you'd go to John, and John would say, "Well, yeah, let's see, wait a minute, I'll give you 64.0. How about you want a B block and an A block? What do you want?" I think
those days are over.
So
that was the way it should still be.
It was enough. And then John passed away, but even before then, IANA, which was the organization that he ran, gave way to the ICANN, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, kind of under the aegis of the U.S. Department of Commerce, more recently under NTIA, the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, which is a division of the Department of Commerce. The key is the domain name system. In 1997, the domain name system was transitioned from basically a government project into this private hands as ICANN, although under the oversight of the United States. ICANN meeting coming up next month in Brazil. Brazil and other nations very upset about the NSA. Brazil, in fact, threatened to build its own cloud, its own internet. That'll work.
Does anybody think, just to stop your story here, does anybody think if the thing, let's assume that it was run all along by Russia, does anybody think that the NSA still wouldn't be collecting the same data?
Right.
I mean, I just don't buy that.
It didn't give them any inside track.
No, it's just that with the NSA story, there's obviously a little bit more concern about the U.S. basically running the internet, as some people understand it. I think there's also a lot of American guilt in that somewhere. It's like, oh, right, we have this imperialistic attitude towards the world, and maybe we shouldn't be running the internet. And I think this is one example where actually we're happy to let you handle this. Let you just do it. It's fine. Yeah, again, at least for me. But there's a little bit of that. Don't you guys feel that sometimes? That sometimes Americans feel like they have to be more respectful of the world. And
that's interesting. We got to bend over backwards.
Yeah, a little bit. I don't know if it's accurate, but it's a feeling I get sometimes, and sometimes it's justified. I'm not saying it's completely unnecessary. I think there is a little bit of over boasting or obliviousness to the rest of the world sometimes.
Yeah, there's
but
that.
in this case, I'm not sure.
So Vince Cerf was the chair of ICANN from 2000 through 2007. He's now at Google. He's a fellow at Google. He was co-inventor of TCP/IP. He said a statement to ours. He said, the announced change would ultimately eliminate the contract between ICANN and the NTIA, the contract between ICANN and the Department of Commerce. Why do I keep saying Congress? Commerce in the U.S. And leave it to ICANN and the Internet community to create a transparency and accountability regime that's rooted in the multi-stakeholder model of administration.
What does that
He
even-
says,
okay.
basically, this is a major step toward implementing a global system of Internet administration where there's no one country.
No, it's going to go to the
wanting
UN, and the UN's going to implement all the crap the UN does, including all its kind of freedom of speech limitations because of their edicts about hate speech, and you're going to see sites disappear. Oh, that's a hate speech
I don't
site.
think
It's
so.
gone.
I think that the
Okay, well,
I really think that
I'm losing a bet when you say that.
you want to make a bet?
That's too late. I already made a bet.
What was the bet?
The bet was with Adam.
That I would say that.
That you defend this crazy notion that should be.
Well, hey, it's not going to the UN.
I agree with our French fellow here. He's got the
That
right
is
idea.
amazing. It's amazing.
It's not going to the UN. They're going to be.
It'll be a UN operation you watch by the end of the day.
Well, even if it's not the UN, the problem is you're going to have, if you start giving it to someone else than the US, of course, the situation is not ideal. Ideally, it shouldn't be run by one country. But still, if you go to someone else, then you can't go to another country. You have to go to everyone. So even if it's not the US, you are going to have
A bureaucracy.
China and
You're right.
Russia,
You're going to be setting up
and
a.
You're
I'm
going to
sorry.
have to. And you're going to have to, first of all, it's a bureaucracy, sure, but that's not it's not my main concern. My main concern is that you're going to have to listen to China. And if China has, a bunch of deals, economic deals with your country, of course, you're going to want to please them somewhere else. And as the NSA scandals have proven, this horrendous invasion of privacy, people don't give the weight to the internet that they give to real life, even though we all know in the audience, on TWiT, that it actually is as, if not more important. And so I do worry that the internet stuff and, the free speech aspect and all of that is going to go by the wayside because we have to protect the factory deals and the exchange deals and all of that. So if China
I don't think that's going to happen. The Department of Commerce
maybe not.
has even said we're not going to give it up to the UN or another country. The IETF has worked very
Where
well.
have they said that?
Right here.
That they're not going to give it up to the UN?
Commerce officials indicated they wouldn't give up oversight. This is from Recode of ICANN to another government or intergovernmental organization, which would include the United Nations. Whoever takes over would be required to maintain the security and stability of the internet domain name system.
This doesn't make sense.
Meet the needs of global customers and according to a Commerce Department statement, quote, maintain the openness of the internet. This makes perfect sense.
No,
one country should be
okay. So they're not going to give it to a
responsible,
country, and they're not going to give it to a consortium of countries.
It's already
what are they going to give it
It's
to?
already something. Well, in effect, is a consortium, but not just of countries, of stakeholders, and it's what it's how the IETF works, the Internet Engineering Task Force, which frankly, arguably, is more important because they determine the protocols that run over the internet. It shouldn't be run by the U.S. Department of Commerce. But shouldn't be run by any country, and it certainly shouldn't be run by the United Nations.
These guys have been. This has been a decade long. This fight. I remember I've been down to ICANN a couple of times. They ship you down there and they lecture you about how horrible this is going to be because you're going to have exactly what Patrick said, almost to the letter. You're going to have these vested interests because we can't do this, we can't do that because you're demeaning us, you're demeaning China in the case of his argument. And we can't have these kinds of sites. They have to be shut down. We have to do this and that, take them off the domain system. I agree with all that.
Well, if that happens, that's scary. And if that, you're right. That's something we want to watch out for.
We know that. I think the Americans having it are so paranoid and conscientious that I think we've done a really good job of maintaining this thing. It's like you don't look at the internet, except for the NSA, which is just spying on just streams. You don't look at the internet and say, geez, this has been poorly managed. I'm surprised it's even up today. It's been very well managed. It's actually astonishing how well it's been managed. But, let's fire the guys. Let's fix it. It's not broken, but let's fix it. That's what I see.
So John is agreeing with me too much. It's scaring me a little bit. So let's take the other side of the argument.
Yeah, take the other side.
The internet is made of things that it's astonishing that they work, and yet they work very well. And you mentioned Wikipedia. I think someone did. Anyway, Wikipedia is one example where if you describe it, you think it's never going to work. It's a bunch of people who can go and edit pages all at the same time, all the way they want to, and we're going to build an encyclopedia out of it. And it would have seemed ridiculous. It did seem ridiculous a few years ago. Actually, it works. So maybe the stakeholders and the people who know how to run this thing will find a system which is not necessarily involving the special interests or the particular interests of various countries, and will manage to devise a system that will make it collaborative and decentralized and efficient. So I hope they will. I'm just worried.
Jill, any thoughts?
Patrick, well, I don't want to jump on Patrick's analogy too much, but I would say that Wikipedia is not really a great analogy because it does have a lot of bias in it, mainly male bias. Women don't contribute to Wikipedia, and there's a whole culture and history behind why women don't contribute
Really?
to Wikipedia.
That's true? There are not a lot of female editors on Wikipedia?
Please, can you believe that? It's like 1 or 2%. It's so small.
Really? But why would that be? Is there a discrimination, or is there less interest in doing it?
It's a very, very big can of worms to open right there. I mean, I could go through the culture of editing and having people respond to your edits, the way people are treated, the way women say, I don't want to get into this because I see the way that it happens and what goes on there, the kinds of communications that people are having. I don't want to even start with that.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Because I think you're missing Patrick's point. I don't think Patrick was discussing the politics of Wikipedia and why or why not women get on it, or anybody else for that matter. I think he was just trying to say that here's a crazy idea that kind of works, that we just stumbled upon, that did not look like it was going to work, and it seemed idiotic when it came out.
What I want to say about the analogy, though, is that sometimes because of our own perspective, we don't see what's missing, right? So we may not see as Americans or as Westerners what's missing from the perspective of just having Westerners or Western countries manage this.
Right.
Okay, I buy that.
So I'm not saying it doesn't work, and I'm not saying we haven't done a good job so far, but could it be better? Of course.
Well, it won't be better. Is my experience. And as one of the older guys on the show, my experience, anytime anything has changed like this, it just worsens. It's like when they bring in the new boss. The new boss is not as good as the old boss. He's crappy. And it just deteriorates. It deteriorates over time. And we're going to see the same thing. So I'm telling you, this is the golden age of the internet. Be happy, because you're not going to see it this good in the future. You'll see.